Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a thriller sci-fi movie called War Games. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Two undercover soldiers arrive at a secret military base amidst a harsh blizzard. These men are U.S. strategic missile wing controllers who are entrusted with keys required to launch a nuclear warhead. They quickly settle into their workstations and begin their shift for the night. Everything seems to be going normally until one of them notices something very concerning. Two red bulbs on the status board keep blinking, indicating a warhead alert. The senior officer, believing it to be a technical glitch, resets the board. However, an alarm soon blares, and a code is transmitted to the officers on duty. They follow protocol by opening a restricted locker and retrieving two red files. These contain top-secret missile launch codes, which the officers match with the code received over the speaker. They then enter the launch code into their computers. To their horror, the launch order is confirmed, and a 60-second countdown commences. The officers then activate all 10 nuclear missiles, preparing them for launch. But the senior officer breaks protocol by requesting to speak with a higher authority on the phone. He keeps trying to contact his superiors, but his calls go unanswered. Soon enough, the countdown plummets to less than 10 seconds. The junior officer is poised to launch the missiles using his key, but the senior is paralyzed by fear. He realizes that launching the missiles could result in the deaths of at least 20 million people. Unbeknownst to them, the event they are experiencing is simply a nuclear attack drill. This exercise aims to assess the willingness of officers to make the agonizing decision of initiating a nuclear strike. The scene shifts, and we see a helicopter descending into the NORAD Combat Operations Center in Colorado. Two FBI agents disembark and are quickly escorted into a sealed office. They are here for a meeting with Dr. John McKittrick, the head of computer operations. Their purpose is to discuss the outcomes of the unannounced nuclear missile launch drill. Rather concerningly, 22% of the officers entrusted with launching nuclear missiles were unwilling to do so. General Behringer then announces that he will implement a psychological screening program to eliminate such individuals from this demanding responsibility. In a heated discussion, McKittrick says that as long as the final launch decision is given to a human being, this scenario will happen again and again. He persuades the FBI agents to examine their war operation plan response, or WOPR. This sophisticated machine learning program continuously gathers and analyzes data. It then simulates war scenarios between the US and the USSR in the form of a game. Through its countless simulations, WOPR devises strategies to maintain American dominance. McKittrick convinces the agents to implement his plan of replacing the wing control officers with an electronic relay system. This will effectively remove human involvement from the final launch decision and entrust it to WOPR. Far from the NORAD base, in Seattle, we find a young David Lightman running late for his biology class. He reaches his class and sits behind his friend Jennifer Mack, who is equally unmotivated for biology. Shortly after, their teacher bluntly informs David that he has got an F in his exams. David then passes a snarky remark, which lands him in the principal's office, a familiar destination for him. However, as he nears the door, he discovers the password to the school's district computer system, hidden underneath a desk. Later that afternoon, David invites Jennifer to his room, where he hacks into the school's computer system using the password. He then changes his biology grade from an F to a C, and does the same with Jennifer's grades. When she protests, he changes her grade back to an F, but later reverts it to an A without her knowledge. During dinner that night, David sees an advertisement for a new game from a company based in Sunnyvale, California. He wants to see the program behind their game, so he comes up with an ingenious idea. David programs his computer to scan a list of telephone numbers in Sunnyvale and dial every one of them. He hopes that this will help him find the computer game company. The next day, Jennifer apologizes to David and asks him to change her biology grades. They then head to his room, where David reveals that he has already changed her grade to an A. Meanwhile, his computer is still dialing numbers to find the game company when it accidentally connects to an unidentified system. David asks the system to list all the games, and it responds with several of them, including Falcon's Maze, Bridge, Checkers, Backgammon, Poker, and Global Thermonuclear War. What was that last one? I don't know. He then prints the list and takes it to two of his hacker friends, Malvin, Malvin's a hacker for sure, and Jim. On David's provocation, Jim tells him about the Backdoor Method. Whoa, don't teach Jennifer this one next time she comes to your room, where a programmer keeps one password to bypass any security measures that may be added later. Malvin suggests they should look for clues in the first game, Falcon's Maze. Following this, David heads to the library to search for information on the creator of the game Falcon's Maze. He spends hours in there and learns that the game was created by someone named Dr. Stephen Falcon. The teenager keeps visiting the library for a whole week and eventually finds substantial information. Turns out Dr. Falcon developed a machine learning program that allowed a computer to play games like chess and poker. The program would learn from its mistakes and improve its skills with each game. Sadly, according to a newspaper article, Dr. Falcon died young at 41 after his son Joshua and wife passed away in a car accident. This is when David connects the dots and guesses that the password might be Joshua. Later at home, David enters the password and the system grants him access, but he has no idea that he is connected to WAPRO at the NORAD Combat Operations Center and not to a gaming computer system in Sunnyvale. Joshua is actually the backdoor password into WAPRO, allowing the user to bypass all other security systems and enter the mainframe. In fact, WAPRO recognizes David as Dr. Falcon and invites him to play chess. The teenager, who thinks this is a game, orders it to initiate global thermonuclear war instead. He chooses to play as the Soviet Union and commands the launch of nuclear missiles at Las Vegas and Seattle. Over at Colorado, David's action triggers alarm bells at NORAD, warning of at least 28 missiles from the Soviet Union. This prompts General Behringer to order DEFCON levels to be pushed to 3, bomber aeroplanes to start patrolling, and the president to be notified of the situation. Right then, David's mother calls him downstairs to take out the trash, forcing him to shut down his computer. As a result of this, WAPRO turns off its missile alert, and the situation returns to normal for the time being. It doesn't take long for NORAD officials to discover that something fishy is going on. They realize that someone triggered the nuclear attack simulations in WAPRO and managed to trace it back to Seattle. Soon afterwards, David learns from the news that he has triggered a full-scale nuclear alert at NORAD. He panics at the prospect of being arrested and calls Jennifer. David tells her everything that happened, and she gives him a rather simple solution: to stop calling that particular number. However, while cleaning his room, David receives a call from WAPRO informing him about the progress of his game. It has been running for 31 hours, 12 minutes, and 49 seconds, with an estimated remaining time of 52 hours and 17 minutes. David asks about the game's purpose, and WAPRO states that the only goal is to win. He is so spooked by all this that he immediately pulls out the connection line from his computer. Later that afternoon, while David is coming out from a local shop, FBI agents surround him. They search him and sternly escort him into a car. It is obvious that they are taking him to Colorado for questioning. Meanwhile, at NORAD, the situation has become tense once more. The WAPRO system continues to simulate a nuclear war, generating countermoves for both the US and the Soviet Union. This escalating simulation has real-world consequences too. In response to the perceived threat of US bombers that General Behringer ordered earlier, the Soviets have also raised their alert level to DEFCON 4. Sometime later, David arrives at the NORAD facility, and everyone is informed of his actions. Dr. McKittrick requests a private conversation with the teenager and takes him to his office. He accuses David of tampering with the computer system, resulting in the escalation between the US and USSR. David admits to initially breaching the system to play a video game, but denies any further contact. Instead, he claims that Joshua, the computer system at NORAD, was the one who contacted him. However, McKittrick suspects that David is collaborating with someone outside the US and relaying sensitive information. He is about to ask more questions when he suddenly receives a phone call, prompting him to rush outside. It turns out WAPRO has been compromised again, and the missile launch codes are at risk. McKittrick suggests that they do nothing and remain calm, but General Behringer raises DEFCON levels to 3. He also orders US bombers to keep patrolling the skies, monitoring Soviet movements. Meanwhile, inside the office, David communicates with WAPRO, who informs him that its final plan is to launch the US missiles towards the USSR in 28 hours. The system then reveals weird information. It says that Dr. Falcon is difficult to reach, both at his Seattle terminal and at a classified location. Intrigued, David asks where this classified address is and who lives there. The system responds: Dr. Richard Hume, aka Stephen Falcon, Tall Cedar Road, Colorado. Before the teenager can utter another word, he is apprehended by FBI agents who inform him that he will face espionage charges. David yells out that Joshua is the one instigating this game and will initiate World War III if not stopped. He pleads with them to call Falcon, but they throw him into a nearby nearby room. Several tense minutes pass by and everyone in the center is on high alert. This is when a huge group of tourists arrives for a tour of the facility. David uses this opportunity to sneak out of the room and hide under a nearby staircase. Seeing the right moment, he mixes with the group of tourists who are now headed out. He then successfully gets on the tour bus and manages to sneak out of NORAD compound. Once he is far enough, David uses a payphone to contact Jennifer. He requests her to book him a flight to Oregon, but she later surprises him by arriving in person. David then reveals that Dr. Stephen Falcon is still alive, and they embark on a journey to Oregon together. Sometime later, the two youngsters find Dr. Stephen Falcon in a lakeside cottage in Oregon. It turns out the scientist has been living under the alias Dr. Richard Hume. Back at NORAD, General Behringer receives an alert about 2 missiles approaching Alaska, accompanied by Russian fighter jets. He immediately orders 2 F-16 jets to intercept the missiles and report back with visual confirmation. But the pilots soon report that no missiles or Russian jets have been detected by their radars in Alaska. Upon hearing this, the general is left bewildered, as a live feed tracker system in front of him does in fact show 2 missiles headed to the spot. Unbeknownst to them, the WAPRO clock is ticking down the time to an actual launch. There are only 14 hours until it starts launching the missiles without anyone's knowledge. The scene shifts to Dr. Falcon, who is sitting with the teenagers and discussing his philosophy toward life. It's evident that he has developed a very pessimistic worldview following the death of his son. The teenagers try to reason with Dr. Falcon, reminding him that his outlook would be less bleak if his son were still alive. "Thanks, kids. Thanks for rubbing that in my face." They urge him to make at least a phone call to NORAD officials to clarify the situation, but he doesn't respond to it and simply retreats to his bedroom. Frustrated, the teenagers leave the cabin in search of a boat to depart, but they find nothing and are unable to leave the island since David cannot swim. This causes him to have a breakdown and he regrets his procrastination in learning how to swim. But as all of this is going on, Dr. Falcon suddenly appears in a helicopter and urges them to join him as they are running late to save the day. The scene then shifts to the NORAD, where General Behringer is alerted about 300 Soviet ballistic missiles heading towards the US. Panicked, he pushes to DEFCON 1 and orders the US bombers to get ready to retaliate. WAPRO's initial report says that the first strike from the Soviet Union is a full-scale attack. Thus, it suggests the US retaliation should also be all out. Fortunately, David, Jennifer, and Dr. Falcon crash into the NORAD facility and burst into the war room just in time. Dr. Falcon frantically informs everyone that the nuclear attack they're witnessing is merely a simulation, but Dr. McKittrick asserts that the system is functioning flawlessly and there is no indication of a simulation. General Behringer is compelled to believe this, as the consequences of questioning the system's accuracy could be disastrous. Nonetheless, Dr. Falcon attempts to reason with the general, questioning why the enemy would risk a full-scale attack. He emphasizes that there would be no victors in such a scenario, making it utterly illogical. He finally persuades the general to delay the US retaliation until the Soviet missiles reach their targets. Soon enough, the countdown reaches its end and the impact time arrives. However, no missiles strike the US, and targeted bases report no damage. This finally causes everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. However, Dr. Falcon observes that WAPRO continues to proceed with the simulated Soviet nuclear attack. It relentlessly generates numerous passwords to crack the 10-character launch codes for the US nuclear missiles. It is actually planning to initiate the launch of thousands of missiles towards the Soviet Union. Now, disarming the missiles is not an option, as they only have approximately 5.3 minutes remaining. With no other alternative, Dr. Falcon and David infiltrate the WAPRO system and challenge it to a game of tic-tac-toe against itself. The system repeatedly draws the game, and as a machine learning program, it learns the concept of a draw. In the meantime, WAPRO also acquires the 10-character nuclear code and initiates the launch sequence. But before fully launching all missiles, it simulates various nuclear war scenarios. It goes through hundreds of millions of sequences and concludes that there is no winner in any scenario. This makes the machine realize that a nuclear strike by one power against another inevitably leads to the complete annihilation of both nations, just like tic-tac-toe. As a result, it relinquishes control of the system and invites Dr. Falcon to play a game of chess instead. As the final credits roll in, everyone is celebrating, and we see the message, the only winning move is to not play. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.